Hey there, adventurers! As you gear up for your next outing, whether just a few hours or a full weekend, keep the AdventureSmart 3 T's in mind. Trip planning, training, and taking the essentials. One key essential, a signaling device, like a whistle and a signaling mirror. A whistle and mirror are easy to pack and don't require power or batteries. A total lifesaver if kicking it old school off-grid, which happens more than you think. Picture this, you're lost in the wilderness, it's raining, you're separated from friends, again, or worse yet, you're injured. Yelling for help won't cut it. 3 sharp blasts from a whistle will cut through the chaos and let others nearby know exactly where you are. A signaling mirror reflects sunlight like a disco ball, making a search party know you're not only down, but out there. So don't go unseen or unheard. Follow the AdventureSmart 3 T's and bring a signaling device and know how to use it. In an emergency, call 911 and stay put until help arrives. There's no charge for rescue.
Welcome to the BC Search and Rescue Association's AdventureSmart Expert Webinar Series.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Scott Montague, a volunteer with Coquitlam Search and Rescue, and as usual, I'll be keeping my eye on the live feeds tonight. Just like most volunteers, I have a full-time job, and it happens to be with Rogers, who is our guest tonight. That said, I don't work in sales, and I'm not part of the team who works on this technology. Tonight, I'll be firmly affixing my AdventureSmart hat. Louis LeBlanc is the expert from Rogers that is joining us from tonight. If you've ever wished that you could text from the top of a remote mountain peak, Louis is about to beam some insights your way about the new mobile to satellite service. Got a burning question about connectivity, coverage, or how this technology really works? Pop them into the Q&A section on Zoom. We'll do our best to answer as many as we can, either live or in the chat. Don't forget to mark your question as anonymous if you don't want your name to be made public. Also, keep an eye on the chat box for links to other handy resources. And finally, if you hear something absolutely out of this world, you can show your appreciation with the emojis under the reactions button at any time throughout the evening. So let's test your internal GPS and see if you can find the reactions button as we welcome the stellar executive director of AdventureSmart in BC, none other than our own Sandra Riches.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that introduction and everything that you start us off with here. It looks like everyone's found, I think, the connection there to clap, heart, or whatever they can find to share their appreciation. Well, here we go again. We're kicking off another webinar series. Really excited to do that. It's a little earlier than normal for our winter, but we're happy to have some fall sessions, which is great for you, great for us, and it's great for Search and Rescue. And we're kicking it all off tonight with you. So thanks for starting off the series with us this evening. I had a couple questions for you, and if you continue to use those little emojis and give a thumbs up or down if you can answer these questions, let me know. Have you ever been injured in the mountains? Either this or this. And yeah, Scott and I can easily put up our hands, that's for sure. And we could talk about my current injury, but we won't. The next question is, have you ever been lost or slightly disoriented out there on the trails? You know, you're just not really sure where you're going. I'd have to say yes to that too. Even when I was a park ranger, got lost in the fog. That's for another time. And have you ever pushed your limits on an adventure that got you into trouble? Those could have been poor decisions, maybe physically went beyond what you really should have been doing. Have you ever done that? If you answered yes to any of those questions, you're not alone, because those are the top 3 main reasons enthusiasts call search and rescue in British Columbia. Number 1 is injury. People are slipping, tripping, and falling left, right, and center. And we really want you to think about that footwear, traction, mobility, your step, maybe some walking. Really think, how can you prevent that injury from happening? Specifically lower extremity. That's where most of those are happening, below the knee. And you know, and getting lost and disoriented could really be mitigated and help you and your group, if you know how to route find, maneuver through the forest, use the good old map and compass if you can go back to old school. North isn't changing anytime soon, so I think we're good there. And if you have those skills, you can maneuver no problem. And then the third one's a tricky one, I think, because it's all about what we decide here. I chose to try something different on my bike a couple weeks ago. Didn't bode well. Sometimes we choose to go beyond our limits and it puts us in a predicament. And that's the number 3 reason most common for search and rescue in the province of BC. So let's think about those as we go through, as we plan for your next adventure. On behalf of the 78 search and rescue groups in the province, 3,200 volunteers, are all unpaid professionals, by the way, who dedicate more than 500,000 hours a year to search and rescue, training, and prevention. Thanks. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks for taking the time to learn and prepare, because it all helps lessen the impact on search and rescue in British Columbia. Before your next adventure, again, think about those 3 things that really cause most of the work for search and rescue. Stick around to the end, because we actually have a little giveaway for you, and it's going to be easily won, I believe, and it will have something to do with our presentation tonight. And it's a book by one of the founders of BC AdventureSmart, actually, Jim McAllister, titled In Search of Recognition, The Story of Search and Rescue in British Columbia. And we'll have that brought to you, compliments of Amazon, once we figure out who the winner is. I'd like to introduce our guest tonight, Louis, as Director of Technology at Rogers, leads Rogers satellite strategy and partnerships with satellite providers. He drives initiatives that connect technology, business strategy, and execution. His current focus is in the Rogers Satellite Program, where he works with cross-functional teams on technology assessment, integration, and market positioning to strengthen Rogers' leadership and connectivity right across the country, from coast to coast to coast. Louis, the stage is yours, and thank you very much for your time tonight. I look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. I really appreciate it, and thank you for having us with you. So I'm going to share my screen. And let me know when you can see it. So give me 1 second here.
Bingo.
It works?
You bet.
Awesome. Okay, so before we get started, I do wish to acknowledge that I'm joining you today from Toronto, the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 of the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this land remains home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. So I'm going to go into the core of our presentation, which is Rogers Satellite. So we launched Rogers Satellite exactly 3 months ago. So we launched it on July 15th. And I'm here today to talk more about what it is and how it could be useful specifically for BC Search and Rescue. So first, I wanted to put these slides in front of you because that's the slides we built about 2.5 years ago, when we literally started working on the program and we were trying to define what this service was going to be. So we put this vision together, these 3 pillars to the program. And I wanted to talk to you about these 3 pillars because I'm happy to say that 2.5 years later, we built a service that delivers on each of these pillars. So the number 1 is seamless coverage. It's a service that aims at closing coverage gaps in Canada and offer wireless services from coast to coast. So that was our number 1 vision. It's how do we close these coverage gaps in Canada? The second pillar is about universal access. So it's how do we connect most of the legacy device without owning the latest device? How do we make this technology accessible to most of the Canadians? And the third one is about life-saving reach. It's about how do we offer 911 services to Canadians whenever they need it and wherever they are. So again, 2.5 years later, these slides is still relevant, and I thought it was really important to put it in front of you because these are the 3 key pillars of the service. So if I move into the next slides, to explain how the service works. It's really high-level view of how it works, but I think it does a pretty good job at understanding the challenge that we had working on this technology. So I'm going to use my laser pointer here. So on the left here, you have a cell phone. Imagine a cell phone that is in remote areas. So there is no wireless service available. There is no cell site close by. It's a cell phone that has absolutely no signal. The idea here is to say, if you're in a position where you have no signal, we're going to offer you a new service. Instead of connecting to a cell site, you will be connecting to a satellite. And so that satellite orbits at about 350 kilometers altitude, and it orbits at about 8 kilometers per second. So the technology, what is really beautiful about it, is that it allows most of the device to connect to that satellite. So you don't need to have like a specific satellite phone. It's literally the phone that you have in your pocket that connects to that satellite, and that gives you access to wireless services. So the way the connection is being established, it's using Rogers wireless spectrum. So it connects to the satellite with that spectrum, and then that satellite connects down to a ground station, our partner's gateway, using a satellite spectrum. And then that ground station is connected to our partner's network that is itself connected to our network, leveraging pretty much like industry standards roaming interface. So that is basically how the technology works. It's pretty innovative. And if you compare that solution to what existed in the past, so more like satellite phone, it was leveraging like satellites that were orbiting about 35,000 kilometers above the Earth. So with a much bigger latency than low Earth orbit satellite. And they were leveraging satellite spectrum, they were leveraging proprietary technologies. So it was a pretty expensive technology, and it required a different type of devices. So pretty big innovation here to say, we're going to offer this type of services, but with the device you own. And one last thing that I wanted to mention on this slide is that I have written here a cell phone, but it could literally be any type of IoT devices as well. So I'm going to move to the next slides to talk more about the user experience. So here on the left, top left, you have two. So there are two maps. I'm going to talk first about the maps on the top. So the maps on the top is literally Rogers terrestrial coverage. So what's in red, it's the LTE coverage. What's in yellow, it's our EXT coverage. And before we launched that service, so prior to July 15th, we covered approximately 99% of the population, but we only covered 18% of the country. So the idea by launching satellite services is that we were going to close these remaining areas where there is no wireless coverage. And in this first phase on July 15th, we offered wireless services up to the 58-degree latitude. So that's what you see on the map on the bottom with the lighter red. So everything that is below the 58-degree parallel that is light red is basically coverage with satellite connectivity. So we now cover roughly 50% of Canadians' land mass. So we went from 18% to 50% just overnight, basically, between the July 14th and July 15th. So talking more about what to expect. So here on the left side, there's an icon, and it refers to this specifically. So what that means here is I'm highlighting the experience you could get on a terrestrial network. So what most people experience when they use Rogers services. So they have access to SMS, RCS, iMessage, they have access to data, voice, they can make 911 call if they need to. They have access to MMS. And the visual clue on their phone is that the network names says Rogers. So now I'm going to talk about the second experience when you are now connected to Rogers satellite. So when you're connected to Rogers Satellite, the experience you get depends on the phone you own. So I'm going to use the first column here, which is called optimized. So these columns is about newer devices. So a device that have received an update from the OEM, the manufacturer, and this OS update basically improve the customer experience. So it would have like embedded messages into the user interface to walk you through the experience and guide you through Rogers satellite, telling you, hey, you are now connected to a satellite network. It is not a 5G plus network. You cannot expect the same performance, but there are still a couple of things you can do. So these newer devices, the visual clue on your phone is that the network name will indicate Rogers satellite. If you have an Android phone, you will have like an icon of a satellite. And if you are on an iPhone, it will tell you, it will show SAT, S-A-T. So these newer devices, they have access to SMS, RCS, iMessage. Voice is not yet available, but Rogers really worked on providing 911 services. And instead of voice call through 911, it is a text to 911. So users can text emergency services. They simply have to send an SMS through 911. These devices have access to MMS, and soon they will have access to light data, which will enable a couple of OTT apps to work on their device as well. So if I highlight the most popular devices, we're talking about iPhone 13 and above, so up to 17, Samsung S23 to S25, and all these devices that you see on the list, the Motorola Razr 24 Plus, the Google Pixel 9 and 10. So the vast majority of the device, a popular device on the market. If I looked at the second column, unoptimized, so these are legacy devices, a bit older devices that have not received any specific update to walk you through the experience of a satellite network. So these devices, they will only have access to SMS and text to 911. And the visual clue on these phones to understand that the network that is being connected to is Rogers satellite is that the name of the network will update to Rogers satellite. And finally, there are some ineligible devices. So devices to which Rogers satellite will not work. So I'm thinking about like iPhone 12 and below, Google Pixel 8 and below. So these devices will simply not connect to Rogers satellite, and the visual clue will simply indicate that there is no service available and there will be no connectivity at all.
So Louis, before we leave the screen, I got a bunch of questions and they're all
Yes.
about this screen. So let's get into it. Jim McAllister mentions that people don't have text to 911 in town. And I know that for people who are hard of hearing, they can actually subscribe to a particular service, and it's a big rigmarole, and they have to do all this stuff. And even then, they're not actually texting to 911; they're starting by phoning 911, and it's a big deal. So, Jim was asking that. A couple other people were asking. It doesn't work in the city. How is text to 911 different between when you're doing it in the city and when you're doing it in the satellite?
So I think what's very important to understand about text to 911, it is not an industry standard. It's really something that Rogers has worked on in the past 2 years to make sure that we could offer 911 services for customers on the Rogers satellite network, but it is not an industry standard. So by default, while in the city, the option is to make a voice call to 911 services. There is another solution for impaired people, which is called text with 911, but it requires a pre-registration. But to make it clear, in a city where terrestrial network are available, users have to call 911 services. Text to 911 will not work. Text to 911 is exclusively for a satellite connectivity.
Okay. So a couple other questions along the same lines just came in. Do you have to have Rogers service to text to 911? I guess this is alluding to the fact that you can 911 voice call even if you don't have service. You can 911. So does the text to 911 require Rogers service, or can anyone do it?
It does, and that's for the same reasons that I explained before. Is there is no industry standards for text to 911, so it is not something that is like, for example, if you want to make a voice to 911 on a device that has no SIM card, you can, but
Yeah.
you cannot do these text to 911 on that device. So there is no industry standards around it. So yes, it does require a Rogers satellite subscription to be able to use text to 911.
So that's because the manufacturers were actually all agreed that we would attempt a phone call if you don't have a SIM, whereas in this case, they've never agreed that they would attempt to do a text if you didn't have service. You have to have service in order to do a text. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's right. You need to have the service to be able to make a text to 911.
Okay. And then along the same lines, the question, how does it work? I think we've covered that somewhat. And there was a secondary question: how do they know where I am? How does 911 know where I am?
Yeah, that's a good point. So we've worked with the OEMs, the device manufacturers, to make sure that location could be shared when a text to 911 is initiated. So in the device, if the location sharing is enabled, then in that case, if I text to 911 requesting assistance, we will ask the location of that device. So the network, not Rogers, but the network and the emergency platform will request the location of that device, and we will be able to locate that person based on the GPS coordinates.
Awesome. I think we've gone through our 911 questions, so I'll let you keep going.
Awesome. Okay, so I'll go to the next slide. And actually, there will be a link to 911. So this is just a slide to highlight like a bit of the news and the like when we launched on July 15th, it was like a bit of the sentiment that we got into the news. So relatively positive around the service. And I put my quote here on the right, my favorite quote from the Search and Rescue President Brian Carrier in Alberta. Rogers Satellite is a game changer for public safety in Alberta. That was my favorite quote because I've been working on that program since the beginning, and the idea to launch a technology that can potentially save lives meant a lot to me. So that's why I put it there, because it's really my favorite one. One other quote that I'd like to tell you is I believe it was under a couple of years ago. It was the Search and Rescue president from BC actually, who said, with this type of technology, we don't need to be called a search and rescue. We can be called a rescue only. And there's a perfect story for this, because literally 1 week after we launch, so literally 7 days after we launch, we had our first text to 911 emergency message. So what happened, it was a user in Quebec that broke his ankle, didn't have any terrestrial network available, so sent a text to 911 through a Samsung S21, so an older device, and we were able to get the location of that person, and emergency services were sent into that location, and they found that person literally 6 meters away from that specific GPS coordinate. So very, very good successful use of the technology. So that's why I was like, we're going to be linked again to 911 in that slides, but it is a game changer, I would say, for people that needs help. So last slides of the presentation, but the service is available today. So every Canadians can go onto our website on rogers.com/mobility/satellite. We are currently in the trial phase, so people can literally go and test the service. It is free. It is free for Rogers customers, and it is free for non-Rogers customers as well. So if you are interested to test the service, feel free to register and start using it. And based on the device you own, you will have the different experience that we've talked about in the slide number 6. So feel free to go on the website, register, and you will be able to access the service in a couple of days.
When does that beta end, Louis?
So end of October. I would maybe refer you to the website to see the details on the timeline. But yeah.
Cool. Lots and lots of other questions. Are any more slides for you, or can we crack into the questions?
No, I think we can crack into the question.
Marvelous. Thank you kindly. Let me just go ahead and stop that sharing there. Click. Okie dokie. Look at them all. They're just coming in like gangbusters. Let me do some. Let's start with some coverage questions. So there's two that are sort of the same, along the same lines. They may not recognize they're the same lines, but I do because I know the geography. There's a person who's up by Niska. Now, Niska is sort of the northwest, and it's near the Alaskan border. And they're saying the map shows straight lines. It actually, I think, shows like hexagonal lines or octagonal lines. But anyway, near the border, up near Niska. And they're asking if they're standing with their phone out in full sky, is it completely 100% coverage when I'm in it? And if I walk 10 meters, it goes to 0% coverage, or is it sort of an approximation? And I think the another person has a similar question. We'll address it at the same time, which is that it shows that there's no coverage in the crow's nest between Salmo and Creston, which is very south, right? Crow's Nest is Highway 3, and there's it's area that's really close to the border, and he wants to know when it works there. So border questions.
Okay.
Is it precise, and what's the deal with the border?
Okay, so it's an excellent question. First, I want to make sure that if you have any question about the coverage, please refer to the website, to our coverage maps on the website.
And I put a link to that already in the chat.
That's the most accurate way to find out if there is coverage in the location. As it comes to the border, and if there is a specific straight line between coverage and no coverage, it doesn't work exactly like this. These are simulations. It is not perfect line into like you step 1 meters and you don't have coverage. There is a bit of a degradation of service, the same way it works for our terrestrial network, to be frankly, completely honest. So now why there is degradation at the border, we have agreement with the US to make sure that there is no interference between the US and Canada. And so for a satellite to reset itself between, it's a flying, as I mentioned, 8 kilometers per second. So it's a flying satellite that goes above like the US, that goes into the Canadian territory. So there is a reset that happens. It is not a perfect transition. There is this buffer zone to avoid any type of interference. So it is not it is not a perfect experience at the border. Hence why we have areas that are buffer zones that have no coverage. And so again, I would really likely to reference the website again. It's the best way to make sure to check if there is coverage or no into a location specifically at the border.
Yeah, and it highly encourage that, because I know a lot of people in the Lower Mainland go to Chilliwack Lake Provincial Park. They go to Manning. There are lots of areas where you might think this would work, and it won't work as well because, like I said, it might be right at that line or whatever. Check it out. I know I've used it myself, and in places that it says there wasn't coverage, there wasn't great coverage, right? And so like you do need to look at the map, and I do look at it still anytime that I'm going anywhere near the border. And that also includes on the island, by the way. So the southern part of the island, if right. You are heading from Victoria and you're going west, the area right at the bottom of the island actually has regular terrestrial coverage. But then you'll have a space between that regular terrestrial coverage and the place where the satellite works, because it'll be a little bit up from there. So take a look at the map, figure out exactly where you're going, and try and work from there. I think that also answers another question. Are they geostationary satellites or low Earth orbit? They're low Earth orbit, right?
That's right. That's
Cool.
right. There's close to a bit more than 650 low Earth orbit satellites into the constellation today.
I got two other questions that I'm going to put together. One is, does the iPhone 14 need to be held in a certain position to use Roger satellite? And the other one is, when it says it's supposed to be used in an outdoor use with an unobstructed use of the sky. So I guess what they're asking is, should they be able to take their phone? Do they have to like hold it over their head so that there's no thing, that there's no coverage, and they have to have a 360 view? Or how tolerant it is of tree cover, hiking up a mountain, being put in a pocket? I have some experience with that, but I'll let you take it to start there.
Well, I'm happy to start, Scott, and feel free to complement with your actual experience. But let me start by saying when you the recommendation and the guidance on using that technology is that you need a direct line of access to the sky. So you need to be outdoor. You need to have your device in your hand and make sure that there's no obstruction. In that case, the service will work. Now, there were a question about the Apple satellites. I think we get this question a lot. There is so the solution from Apple is really about like you have this user interface that guide you through how do you connect, how do you find that satellite, and how do you stay in direct line to that satellite. So you literally have to move your phone around and find that satellite and stay connected to it. Our solution do not work like this. Our solution is more like a traditional LTE type of connectivity. So you have your phone in your hand. As long as you're outside, again, you will see the bars that indicates the signal strength into your phone, and that's pretty much it. If you walk outside and you have your phone in your side pocket, for example, you are likely to have the service that works. You are likely to receive SMS, iMessage, and RCS if you use it that way. Now, if you are like in a building, no, it is not meant to work in a building. It really meant to be used outside.
Yeah, and I can emphasize some of those things. So when I'm backpacking, I actually take my phone, because I've used the service a lot. I take my phone and I put it on my backpack strap. It just happens to be convenient, but it also means that I have great access to the sky. I would not put it in my back pocket underneath my pack, because my pack is going to be just a giant obstruction, as am I, to the sky. So especially if you have a lot of things around you. Works pretty good in the trees. So tree cover was one of the questions. It works pretty good in the trees. If you get really thick tree cover, like you're actually having to try and get around various tree trunks, you're going to have problems. But in most of the forests that we have here in BC, I haven't had much of a problem with it. Mountains, hiking up a mountain. This is an interesting one. Hiking up a mountain, if you are on a steep mountain slope and you have it in the front of you, essentially you are the obstruction to your behind, and the mountain is the obstruction to your front, right? So you actually have a lot of obstruction. Okay. So I found that if I'm hiking up a mountain and I'm facing the mountain slope, as opposed to going up zigzags, I'm facing the mountain slope, the coverage isn't as great. If I'm coming straight down and I'm facing away from the mountain slope, the coverage is great. So I've also found there are places where you're in tight valleys. So if you're at the bottom of a tight valley and you've got a mountain here and you've got a mountain here, and you're surrounded, there's not very much sky, there's less coverage. So it doesn't mean there's no coverage. What I find is that there is some coverage. It's just not as continuous. Does that make sense, Louis?
That makes sense. Yeah, it is true. It is the expected behavior. As I mentioned, like the satellite passed by 8 kilometers per second. There is a few satellites that pass by. And when you have a mountain, when you are in a valley, like the the time as to which you are connected to that satellite is reduced by the two mountains that you have beside yourself. So totally makes sense. It is an expected behavior.
Cool. I've got three. Oh, right, one's a double. I don't know how that happened. I've got three questions about battery. Since the phone is constantly connecting and disconnecting from satellites, does the battery drain faster? Another person says, does it drain your battery faster? So I think that's the same question.
um, that's a good question. I haven't noticed, or at least I haven't heard any feedback on the battery itself. I don't know, Scott, if you have experienced these specifically yourself.
I have. I would say yes, it does drain a bit faster. I wouldn't say it drains a lot faster. However, let's put on our AdventureSmart hat here, folks. If you're going to rely on this for your 911 service, you cannot be using that same phone to take pictures and to text everyone 20 seconds and stuff like that, because when you do need the 911 phone, if there is no battery, it will not work. Okay, so let's be adventure smart. If we're going to use that phone, there's a couple things you can do. You can have a spare battery with you with this charging cable, and you can use that to boost up your phone if you need to. You can just not use that phone for your taking pictures. You can also, if you're not actually actively texting someone, put it into airplane mode. When your phone is in airplane mode, the battery it goes much longer than when it isn't, because it's not using all of these different radios. It's not trying to do things, right? So that connection, just connecting to a satellite or disconnecting from a satellite, all of that type of thing can cause that. If you are there and you are using it to text 911, turn down the brightness of your screen. Make sure that the only thing you're doing is that. You aren't also playing games. You aren't also taking things. That battery will become essential in the event of an emergency. So it's important to be adventure smart, and that includes, if this is going to be your source for texting 911, and you can also consider having other sources. Person locator beacons, those still exist. There are other ways of getting in touch with emergencies. But if this is the way that you're going to do it, then it's on you to make sure you have enough battery to actually make it work. Any more thoughts on that one, Sandra?
You hit the nail on the head a few times. Thank you for going. Thank you
Did
for
I
going
overdo
down
it?
I depends on the listener, maybe. Maybe some in the crowd might say yes, but you hit the nail on the head perfectly. And they're great reminders, right? Louis has awesome information here about the system. We have foolproof information as well, and that's why we're here to do what we do and to remind everyone or introduce you to these best practices, really. And it really is the best way to go. We've had communication and technology experts on before. We have had a couple versions. If you head over to the BC Search and Rescue Association's YouTube, you can check out those comms and tech webinars, and they really jump into the different systems, like Scott mentioned, InReach, Spot, Zoleo as examples, and really that phase of the first 3 T's, right? That trip planning phase, and really dialing in your communications and making sure you understand what your communications are for your group amongst each other, together, separated in an emergency, and what that looks like, where and how that's all going to come into play. So thanks for talking about screen and airplane mode and battery. And, our phones are great, but they don't love the outdoors as much as we do. They don't like to run through the puddles as much as we do, and splash around and jump in the snow, and they don't like any of that, but we do. And so just remember what device you're taking and what it's capable of and what it's able to do in the circumstances and the weather and the terrain and the exposures that you place it in. We think they're just foolproof, don't we? We take them everywhere and we use them faithfully day in, day out, and we think that they'll be bomb-proof out there.
No, that's a great point, because
Mhm.
if you fall, right? How many people here, put up your hand if you've broken a screen on your phone, right? If you are texting 911 because you fell, that could have also broken the screen on your phone, right? So
pros and cons to everything, right? But it's
Absolutely.
always good to have those backup plans and think about those extra tips that will help you use the devices. And I say devices because we do have primary and secondary means of communication devices wisely. Thanks, Scott.
Absolutely. Okay, so Louis, did you want to tackle on that one anyway?
The what, sorry?
Did you want to take? Did you want to do any further take on battery preservation?
No, Scott, I agree with you. It totally makes sense.
Okay, so we've got more coverage and border questions. There is an interesting one. Is there plans to make it better in the border? So there's a person, I guess, over by Creston, over by the Kootenays, where, by the way, my wife broke her wrist last week. And that person says the coverage isn't great near the border, as we just discussed. Is that going to change anytime soon? Is that something that's going to happen in the next year, 5 years, 10 years?
The answer is we are working with our partners to constantly like improve the coverage, and
Okay.
that includes, of course, coverage at the border. So we are trying to find ways to maybe have an improvement and have like better algorithm efficiency to offer better service at the border. And we are also looking at alternative solutions in the future as to how we can connect not only like at the border, but also past that 58-degree latitude
Right.
and go up to these northern locations. So the answer is yes. We constantly work on how do we improve the service and make it better. But
It
yes,
is what it is for now.
it is as of today. It is unexpected behavior. But yes, we're working on improving over time.
Cool. On that same note, there's a person talking about T-Mobile satellite, and they're asking if they can roam in the U.S. To T-Mobile satellite if they go down to Leavenworth. Leavenworth is about 150 kilometers south of the border, in case you're not familiar with it. It's a great Bavarian town. If you ever want to go down there for Oktoberfest, it's a great place to go get your beer. But in town, there's terrestrial coverage. I want everyone to know that because I go down there frequently. So you would have your regular coverage. And I guess what they're asking is if you go south of town, because I know this too, because I camp down there, if you go south of town and there's no terrestrial coverage, will they get their satellite coverage there, or Rogers satellite?
So the answer is in the future, yes. It is not something that we offer today, but yes, they are the concept of reciprocal roaming. It's how those Canadian users can go into the US and leverage the same network done in the US, and how can US users come into Canada and use Rogers satellite. So it is a concept. We're working on it. I can't mention any timeline on that call, but it is something we're working on.
Awesome. There's so many questions. I'm trying to get through all these. So there is a question about weak terrestrial signal. So the question is, in the presence of a weak terrestrial signal, does that prevent access to satellite? So I guess the question is, if you can see a tower, or if the phone can see a tower, will it not connect to satellite?
Yes, the answer is yes. So there is a priority on the device. That happens is the number one priority network will be our network, so LTE, 5G. So Rogers terrestrial network will take priority over everything else. The second priority will be on the our EXT network, our partners network. So if it's a terrestrial network, that will be the second priority. And then really, if the device do not detect any form of connectivity from a terrestrial network, then it will default back as the last resort type of connectivity to our Rogers satellite network. But the answer is yes. If there is just a bit of a terrestrial network, likely the device will try to connect to it.
And I'll also put one other note that I've noticed is that sometimes you can be well north of the border, and you can pick up AT&T because if you're at the top of the mountain and you're seeing the top of, say, a mountain just in the States, Shuksan or wherever, and that mountain happens to have a satellite on top or a terrestrial cell on top, you could see that one, and that will you will connect to that one rather than connecting up to satellite. Older models of Bob Plummer wants to know if even older model such as an Samsung A13, will they still be able to use satellite? So I guess that's an unoptimized device. It was one of the ones that would work, but isn't optimized. Is that right?
So the A13, yes. So I don't have it as in my list of optimized devices. So likely it will fall into that unoptimized column. And so the service that would be available on that device would be SMS and text to 911.
Cool. Adam has a couple questions about urban search and rescue. So in a large scale emergency like an earthquake, let's say the terrestrial network's having difficulties today. I know that in the States, they've had times where they have used this coverage, this type of coverage in a mass emergency when there's terrestrial emergencies. Do we think that there's going to be sufficient coverage to be able to do the texting, or will there be congestion? Do we have any idea really?
So it's definitely something we're working on, and we've seen some carriers in the US leveraging it for this type of solution, specifically in after like a storm or a situation where a terrestrial network were down. So it is something that we are exploring. Like it could be like because of fires, could be because of electrical outage, floods. There's a million reasons as to why a terrestrial network could be down, and the idea is that how could we leverage that network to supplement temporarily this outage, and that would means that, by the way, that our network is down, our competitor's network is down, like it would means like it would be a pretty bad situation.
Yeah.
So it's something we are looking into, and something that, yeah, we're working on.
Cool. So I'm going to cut off the questions now. By the way, no more questions because we're trying to get through the ones that we do. Does a waterproof bag for a phone interfere with satellite connections? No.
Well, that's a good question. I guess it would depends on the waterproof bag.
Yeah.
I can't answer this question. I would not know. I think
I can take a
test.
crack at it. So most waterproof bags, if you're talking like the ones that you have for phones that are clear, you won't have any metal in them, so it won't be making it into like a Faraday cage. If it's something that is opaque and it's specifically designed to block coverage, so for instance, there are things that are designed to make sure you can't read an RFID or a NFC from your phone, then it won't work in there. So you have to look at it. But if it's a clear bag, it's okay. Bear in mind that if you're thinking about putting this on top of your kayak, which is where I would use it, right? Put it on top of the kayak in a bag, works fine. If that goes in the water, it won't work. Okay, so radio frequencies do not travel well through water itself. So if you have in the open air and it's in a bag and it's in the open air, that's fine. You put it 6 feet underwater and you're trying to text someone, it ain't gonna work. So that one's that one's something that's well, I've found even with any other types of radios. So Human, yes, go on to I put a link in the chat for the signing up for a beta. And even if you're not a Rogers customer, you said you could do a beta. How does that work?
So the way it works is that we will give you access to an eSIM. So you would have like a different phone numbers specific to that eSIM. So your phone, if it supports like dual SIM cards, you would have like your regular SIM card from your existing provider, and then you could add an eSIM to that device, and then you would have like basically 2 SIM cards on your device, one for your existing phone number and one provided by Rogers to give you access to Rogers satellite.
Cool. Human also asked about monthly subscription. take a look at that webpage I already provided about the beta. I think it talks about how much it will cost, and then there might be some plans that include it, some plans that don't. So go take a look over there because we're more techie here, and you can go figure it out. But there is a cost, and it will be shown on the thing or included in a plan somewhere. Okie dokie. Someone had the when the phone says SOS only, what does that mean?
SOS only. Which type of phone? I guess it would be
I think
maybe
that'd be an Apple.
I think it would be an Apple. So I think it simply means that there is no terrestrial network that has been detected by the device, and the device offers to if it's the SOS from Apple with the satellite icon, then it is how do you reach out to emergency services through the Apple satellite solution. So that is not related to Rogers satellite specifically.
Cool. And I think we're at the end of the questions because the last question wasn't a question. It was just a comment about the fact that it shows a little hexagonal thing on the thing. And we talked about that. It's not perfect. It's not a perfect line. It can be a little bit worse at the line, and then it gets a little bit better as you go across it. So I think we're at the end. Lily, wow. Absolutely amazing. And I don't know if we've ever done one with 25 questions before, Sandra. Is that a first?
This is a first. I'd say you covered your content in a short and sweet presentation. Thank you for that. It was very condensed and strategic. And then everyone was full of beans and full of great questions, which is really what we want this to be about. It's for you as listeners and followers and webinar participants to ask questions and really engage with us. Scott, thanks for all your extra answers as well. And Louis, great presentations, very helpful as we just heard some more in the comments. But Scott, if you could describe what we're going to do with the contest, and I have a question for our audience and a little plug on a new project that we're working on, and we can wrap it up for the evening. So stick around a couple more minutes, folks.
Yeah, there's a contest going on, so we're going to be giving away a book, and I think it's a book by a person who's actually on this like on this webinar right now because he gave a question earlier. But Sandra will describe the book. What I need you to do is go into the chat. So we've been talking about the Q&A section right now. Go over to the chat where I just posted that link, and you're going to answer the question in the chat. Now, what I need you to do is a two-part answer, okay? I need you to have the answer and your email address. And it has to be in the same message, answer and email address. And the first person to answer correctly will get a book.
It's a little bit of typing, but I think you can do it. So you get ready. Someone's already jumped ahead with their. I have to ask the question first, but here we go. Yes, and Jim has joined us tonight. So thanks, Jim, for joining us. I really appreciate your time. Jim is one of the founders of BC AdventureSmart, folks. And if you want to hear more about him and the history of BC AdventureSmart, check out the November 22nd, 2024 webinar we did that talks about the celebration of our 20th anniversary. And you can find that on the BC Search and Rescue Association YouTube channel. The book is titled In Search of Recognition, The Story of Search and Rescue in British Columbia by Jim McAllister. And the question is, and because Jim's book is about search and rescue, my question is about search and rescue tonight. I mentioned something at the very beginning at the top of this as I was talking about volunteers, the number of search and rescue members we have. But if you can tell me how many hours a year do those search and rescue volunteers dedicate annually to search and rescue, prevention, and training?
That didn't take very long.
No,
okay.
It didn't. People were listening. People were listening.
So the grand total of 500,000 is correct. I think someone has 5 million, might be an extra zero there. And another person said 800. Now, I do actually know, believe it or not, someone who did 800 hours, one person who did 800 hours, which is just mind-boggling to me. But it is technically possible, and it has happened. But 500,000 was the one we were looking for, wasn't it?
It is. Thanks for playing, everyone. And just before we head off, I'd like to share our most recent project. I just put it in the chat there as well. We've just started and launched our new Good Chat podcast. I'm the host, and we invite guests on to come on. We've got 4 episodes for you to listen to. You can check them out there via the link I just shared in the chat. So join in, tune in, and stay tuned because we have more episodes coming up. But on behalf of the 78 search and rescue groups in the province of BC, the 3,200 members, founders like Jim, and many others who have built this program, built the model of BC Search and Rescue in the province, assisted right across the country and elsewhere. Thank you. Thank you, Louie, and to Rogers and everyone who supports us at your end of town and your side of the country. We really appreciate your support. Scott, thanks again for all you do at Coquitlam. And the next one we're doing in our series is November 22nd. Our special guest will be Avalanche Canada. Please join us. It's all about terrain talk. I can't wait to welcome them. And if you want to join me on their webinar series, I'll be over there on October 29th, talking all about trip planning, preparation for your winter adventures. Thanks for getting in touch with us, staying tuned, giving us our support, and all of this effort really does lessen the impact on search and rescue and adds to the safety culture in the province. Take care, everybody. See you next time. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
So, you want to be AdventureSmart. Good.
But what is being AdventureSmart?
Being AdventureSmart is really all about taking responsibility for your own safety and following the 3 T's.
Got it. What are the 3 T's?
What are the 3 T's? The 3 T's are the trifecta of outdoor safety: trip planning, training, and taking the essentials. The 3 T's can vary from person to person, activity to activity, and season to season. But here are some important ways to ensure you are prepared and safe on your next adventure. Trip planning. We could go on forever about this one. Trip planning is an essential step and one of the easiest ways we can stay safe on our adventures. This is something that should be done every time we head into the outdoors, whether for a few hours or multiple days. Trip planning can be broken down into 4 simple steps. Planning your travel route and navigation is about picking a trail or route based on its difficulty that's relative to your experience, ability, and the amount of time you have. Know your limits. Not all trails are created equal, so know the terrain and conditions. A 10-kilometer hike scrambling straight up a steep mountain is a lot different than a 10-kilometer stroll around a lake. Before you go anywhere, check the weather and keep checking it as things can change fast. This includes wind, precipitation, temperature, and sunset times. Finally, make sure you leave a comprehensive trip plan with a trusted contact. Keep in mind, this may not be your mom or dad or best buddy. Choose someone you can count on if you were to get into trouble. A comprehensive trip plan might be as simple as sending your trusted contact a text or email with key information about your activity, or using the AdventureSmart app, which allows you to enter a detailed trip plan. Training doesn't mean being an elite athlete or being queen of the mountain on Strava. Training is a continuous process of outdoor recreation. It's about developing the necessary skills and abilities to be safe. This might include working your way up to that big summit hike, taking a few courses to expand your wilderness and backcountry knowledge, navigation and route finding courses, or even learning more advanced skills like rescue and emergency training. You have planned and trained. Now make sure you take the essentials. Taking the essentials means packing everything you potentially need to stay warm, safe, and dry if an emergency unexpectedly arises. What if you rolled your ankle or got hurt? What if you got lost and had to spend the night outdoors? Take the time and be prepared to look after yourself. So that's it. Those are the 3 T's.
That's it.
But no matter how hard you train, how well you trip plan, and how much essential gear you bring, you may still find yourself in an emergency. And that's okay. The wilderness can be unpredictable. If you find yourself in an emergency, it's important to stop, think, observe, and plan. Use that essential gear you brought to stay warm, dry, and safe, and contact 911 on your emergency communication device. Remember, search and rescue in BC is free for everyone. Remember, safety is an outcome of good trip planning, training, and taking the essentials. It's your responsibility. So let's all do our part and be AdventureSmart.